Despite the strict security and digital system checking at the world's largest airport, drug smuggling was increasing with cunning and planning. Security was very concerned about how to stop the growing drug trafficking, so they called the very dangerous Detective Mehul, told him the whole matter and assigned the case to find this drug smuggler. Mehul did a lot of research and found a way to track it down. He watched the CCTV footage of the days when the drug trafficking took place. The first day of trafficking took place on January 1st. In the footage of that day, there are 2 men and a woman. The second day of trafficking took place on April 23rd, involving 2 women and 1 man. On the third day, June 25th, drug trafficking took place. On that day, there were 2 women and 1 man. And fourthly, the last day the drug trafficking took place on August 23rd, 2 men and 1 woman were in the CCTV footage. Mehul sees all these footages and realizes who is the drug smuggler among them. Can you tell who is the drug trafficker by looking at all these footages? You have 10 seconds to give your answer in the comment box. So the answer is C, option woman. Now you must be thinking how Detective Mehul recognized this woman. Because the first day of drug trafficking was in January, at that time this woman was pregnant, and the last day of drug trafficking was in the month of August. On that day the same woman was also pregnant, which meant that the woman was pretending to be pregnant and had hidden drugs in her stomach so that no one could suspect her. But Mehul is a very dangerous spy. He caught the woman. Since then there is no drug smuggling at this airport. Let us ask you a delicious riddle. Look at this picture carefully and tell me where the clock is in it. Once upon a time, as the train continued its journey through picturesque scenery, the 4 men found themselves sitting together, mesmerized by the beauty outside the window. Nancy, a young woman with a passion for beauty, wore a magnificent brooch on her coat, which sparkled in the sunlight as they walked through gardens and mountains. However, the fascination of the scenery came to an abrupt halt as the train entered a long, dimly lit tunnel. Darkness engulfed the surroundings, making it impossible to see anything outside the train windows. Nancy's heart skipped a beat when she felt a sudden tug on her coat. When the train finally exits the tunnel, she quickly discovers that her precious brooch is missing. Perplexed by the mysterious disappearance, Nancy turns to those sitting next to her for answers. He began his inquiry with a middle-aged man who enjoyed his coffee while traveling. "Nancy," said Joe, holding up his hands defensively,
"I couldn't take your brooch. I was too busy sipping coffee, trying to keep myself awake."
Although initially skeptical, Nancy turns her attention to Adam, a young man who falls asleep while walking through the tunnel.
"I was sleeping," Adam replied, rubbing his eyes with a yawn. "I didn't even know we entered a tunnel. I certainly didn't take your brooch."
Nancy considered their answers and then turned her gaze to Gary, who was engrossed in reading the newspaper.
"Gary, did you notice anything unusual while reading?"
Nancy asked, her voice full of concern. Gary replied seriously,
"My dear, I was too engrossed in an article about politics. I did not see or touch your brooch. I am sorry for your loss."
"Can you find out which of them is the thief?" The thief is Gary. He is pretending that he was reading a newspaper. He stole in the dark, and as soon as it got light, he picked up a nearby newspaper and started reading it so that Nancy wouldn't suspect that he had stolen it. But Nancy knew the thief was Gary because he was holding the newspaper upside down, and Nancy caught him. I am sure you liked the first video of Detective Mehul. If you want to see more delicious videos like this, then subscribe this channel.